The event that changed everything did not happen at Treblinka. It happened in Prague, on a road on the morning of May 27, 1942, when Reinhard Heydrich, the chief of the Reich Security Main Office, one of the most powerful men in the Nazi security apparatus, and the principal architect of the systematic plan to murder the Jews of occupied Europe, was mortally wounded in an ambush carried out by Czech resistance fighters. He died of his injuries on June 4, 1942. Heydrich's assassination did not slow the machinery of genocide. It accelerated it. The operation already underway to systematically exterminate the Jewish population of occupied Poland, an operation that would eventually bear his name as a grim memorial to its architect, was intensified in the months following his death, driven partly by the logic of its own momentum and partly by the determination of those who remained to complete what Heydrich had designed. Operation Reinhard, as it came to be known, was the most ambitious and murderous component of the final solution as applied to Polish Jewry. A coordinated program to transport, concentrate, and kill the millions of Jewish people living under the Nazi occupation in the general government, the administrative territory carved from occupied Poland. The plan required infrastructure. Shooting could kill thousands. It could not kill millions. Not with the speed, the secrecy, and the logistical manageability that the Nazi leadership demanded. What was needed were dedicated killing facilities, camps built specifically for extermination, located in accessible but isolated areas, connected to the rail network that could deliver victims in continuous train loads, and staffed by personnel experienced in the administration of mass death. 3 camps were selected for this purpose. Belzec and Sobibor were already operational or in development. The third would be Treblinka. The decision to expand Treblinka into an extermination site was made by Odilo Globoknik, the SS and police leader of the Lublin district, whose authority over Operation Reinhard in the general government made him one of the most consequential figures in the Holocaust administrative history. Globoknik was not a man given to hesitation. He had overseen the construction of Belzec, had watched its operation, had absorbed its lessons, and had drawn from those lessons a set of conclusions about what worked and what could be improved. When he identified Treblinka as the location for the third Operation Reinhard camp, he was making a decision based on specific practical criteria. The camp's isolation from population centers large enough to generate witnesses, its proximity to the rail lines that would need to carry hundreds of thousands of victims, and the existing infrastructure that could be repurposed or expanded. The forest that had made Treblinka 1 a useful labor site now made Treblinka 2 a logical death factory. The Jews of occupied Poland did not yet know this. In the ghettos of Warsaw and Radom, people were living under conditions of systematic deprivation and terror. Aware that their situation was dangerous and deteriorating, uncertain about the full nature of the danger they faced. The Nazi regime's genius for deception, its ability to maintain at every stage of the process just enough ambiguity about its ultimate intentions to prevent the organized resistance that full knowledge might have produced, was already operating at full capacity. The word being used in official communications and on the signs posted at deportation points was not murder. It was resettlement. And in the summer of 1942, as construction crews began work on the site that would become Treblinka 2, the transports were already being planned. Geography is never neutral in the history of the Holocaust. The placement of the Operation Reinhard death camps, Belzec, Sobibor, and Treblinka was not accidental or arbitrary. It reflected a specific strategic logic that Globoknik and the SS leadership had developed through the experience of operating the earlier camps, and that logic placed a premium on three factors above all others: access, concealment, and precedent. Access meant rail connectivity. The murder of hundreds of thousands of people required the ability to transport them in large numbers over potentially significant distances, and the rail network of occupied Poland, already being used to move military supplies and forced laborers, was the obvious mechanism. Treblinka's location in the northeastern region of the general government placed it within reasonable rail distance of the Warsaw Ghetto, the largest concentration of Jewish people in the Nazi-occupied Europe, with a population that had been swollen by deportations from surrounding areas to over 400,000 people at its peak. The line that connected Warsaw to the northeast passed through territory the Nazis already controlled completely. Extending a spur to the new camp required effort, but not extraordinary effort. Once built, it would allow trainloads of victims to arrive continuously, processed and killed before the next transport arrived. Concealment means distance from eyes that might report what they saw. The forests of the Treblinka region were not impenetrable, but they were remote enough that the activities of a camp hidden within them would not be easily observed by the kind of population density that might produce witnesses, rumors, or in the Nazi calculation, the organized disruption that the knowledge of the camp's true purpose might inspire. The precedent of Belzec had demonstrated that a camp could operate in relative obscurity for months before its function became widely understood even by the populations most directly threatened by it. Treblinka's geography offered the same promise. Precedent meant the accumulated operational knowledge of what had already been built and what had already failed,